So the thing I want to talk about is the cosmetics in Arc Raiders. So I'm a big Embark Studios head, big The Finals head. I got a lot of respect for Embark Studios, and there's only 2 games that I'm counting down the days until they come out, and that's GTA 6, which of course is going to take a lot longer to come out, and Arc Raiders. And I feel like people have talked about a lot of different aspects of the game already, and something in particular I want to share my ideas for are the cosmetics. So there's what we've seen so far, which is the sort of like retro space age aesthetic in terms of like the architecture and stuff like that. We've got like brutalism and stuff like that, and it seems pretty consistent, cohesive. There's a few sort of out there outfits that we saw in the public playtest or the tech test too, but besides that, everything was pretty cohesive. And I heard rumors from some people that got to play that public tech test too, that shortly after they received in their emails a post tech test survey, but the topic was a little interesting. Usually, of course, it's pretty normal for developers to send a post tech test or open beta, closed beta survey, and that's usually in general like what kind of game. Like they're asking what kind of games do you play, how often do you play them, what did you like or dislike about the tech test, just trying to gauge what are your habits, where are you coming from with your feedback, stuff like that. But this one, or I think I heard there were multiple about specifically cosmetics and the design of certain things like the weapons and the enemies. And I think they were trying to gauge how important is the aesthetic of the game to people, how closely tied to things like the lore or the world building do people want the look of the game to be, the cosmetics, the weapons, the enemies, all of those things. And I'm hoping people answered pretty closely. I think those things are pretty important myself, but I do think, especially since we've already seen some sillier outfits like the diving bell suit, whatever you call that. I guess that's what that's called, the diving bell suit. But I think something like that could definitely work better in the game if they have some sort of lore explanation as to why some of the raiders would wear things that are more practical versus why some just wear things like that don't make a lot of sense in reality. Of course, it's a fictional video game, but I think it's a pretty immersive and detailed experience. It's very high fidelity, so stuff like that can sort of bring someone out of that, I think. But I think they're on the line. They don't cross it in any ways. But I think if they implied something like, while many raiders understand that blending in or keeping things practical can be beneficial for survival, the boldest of them dare to stand out, even if it means dying in their more eccentric attire. If they said something like that somewhere in the game, if that was something you could find, or if it was like a tip or something that just explained that, I think that'd be interesting, and I think they could expand upon that more. That would let them add even more eccentric outfits and stuff like that, and people would just sort of know in the back of their head, like, okay, these are for people that want to stand out, that want to sort of like role play this raider fantasy, or while other things it's the other raider fantasy of like wearing all practical survival gear, stuff like that. I want to expand upon that and say I think it'd be really cool that if they had a sort of lore reason for why new items or cosmetics arrive each season, or like new maps, new enemy types, things like that. I don't remember there being much of a story to progress through the quests in the tech test. It was more just learning the basics of the game and being introduced to some of the traders that act as the characters of the narrative. And I feel like they don't have to do anything too fancy, but if they explained if they explained us getting new maps, new weapons, or anything with a new theme as a sort of expansion of explorable territory for the raiders, I think that would make a lot of sense. That would add to the immersion, and I think there's a lot they could do with that would be pretty interesting. Like I wrote down some examples that first came to my mind, like if I don't think this would make sense for like a season 2 or 3, this would maybe be like season 4 and beyond, maybe a season that's sort of like tactical military themed, and maybe the explanation for it. And it'd be really cool if they added a map that that's like an abandoned military base that required like special arc robots to to take over that area. Maybe there's 2 queens on the map instead of just one. Or I think that's what they're called, the arc queen. Or maybe there's more bisons than usual. But I think that would definitely be like a cool, maybe not end game area, but definitely like a higher difficulty than normal. Like I feel like if they added something like a military base where you could find abandoned equipment and gear more commonly, then that would make a really good high difficulty zone with more arc. And maybe more players or less players, because I've heard, and this is also a rumor, that maybe it's different per map, like the total player count. I'm not sure about that. But some other themes I had in mind was maybe like if they did a map that was close to like a shoreline or something like that, it could be more tropical or like sailor and sea themed. And maybe if the raider territory expanded, maybe not raider territory, because the raiders go into arc territory where you can do runs topside, I guess is a better way of explaining what a map in the game is. But I was thinking maybe if there was an area with a lot of like abandoned like medieval architecture, that could be cool for like maybe a medieval themed season where there's some outfits that have some like medieval gear attached to them, but in sort of like a makeshift way, like stolen artifacts put together to make armor. And maybe for each, if it makes sense for there to be a new type of arc robot there, that would be a way for them to add new enemy types, to add variety to that. But I think in general, setting up the progression and like the seasonal basis of the game as a live service in a way that's grounded as like an expansion of territory for the raiders, for the denizens of Speranza, new explorable areas leading to new enemy types and new weapons and new outfits that make sense to be coming from those areas. I think that would be a really solid foundation for how both the story itself can move forward and new, like I said, aesthetics and ideas to be explored without dissolving any of the built-up immersion. And really, that's about all I wanted to talk about on that topic. Definitely let me know what y'all think. And yeah, I think I'm going to get back into some more matches of the finals.